Now we got dumped on last night, big time, after all winter with very little snow. Kind of got spoiled. Ooh, almost went over a mass. I think most everybody on this channel is already subscribed to my main channel. My last video over there was my successful attempt at the Switchblade knife mechanism. It's not remarkably different from the first try, the video I showed here on this channel, but I did learn from that experience and applied it to this one. And I've got a mechanism now that works perfectly just about every time. It rarely misfires. I didn't have to do anything with the blade to make it heavier. It seems to have enough momentum. I think most of that is due to the way the mechanism is. There's not a lot less friction in there for the blade to slide out and back in again. And I use compression springs, one on each end, rather than tension springs to pull across the whole thing. So that doesn't actually put any pressure downward or upward to interfere with the action. In this video, I'm going to be doing something that I did before on my other channel. Right after I did the belt grinder, I showed how to make one of the drive wheels. I'm going to do that again because the way I did it there with a just cutting it out on the bandsaw, then actually rounding each disc on the disc sander and then gluing it all together is not working out well for some people. There's a little bit too much messing around with it after it goes on the machine. A lot of people are opting not to try to make the wheels after, actually not even trying, I don't think, and going with bought ones. That's always a good idea, but it'd be nice if you would take a crack at making these. They run perfectly after you get them all set up. And mine is exactly the same as when I made it first. It hasn't changed. And I really didn't do anything special with the MDF wheels. But anyway, I've got this blank here that I took the time to glue together the other day. It was about a week ago, actually. And I've already drilled out the hole. Now, one tip about drilling out the hole is that you really want to clear the bit as it's going through. Otherwise, what will happen is that will slow down the cutting and make the bit wander. So I've got the blank here drilled out. I marked the center before I got going. What I forgot to do was mark the circle to show where I need to cut it out roughly on the bandsaw. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to show you a little trick that I just thought up. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the edge of that hole to draw the circle. Now, this is not perfect, but it is a good solution if you find yourself having done something like this and you need to draw a rough circle. So I'm just going to keep that against the outside edge of the hole that I drilled as I spin it around to draw this outside circle. Okay, as you can see, not too bad, actually. Better than I thought it would be. Now I can cut it out on the bandsaw, and then after that, I'll bring it over to the lathe and show you what I'm going to do over there. Now, normally what you would do if you were going to do something like this is you would mount this between centers without drilling the hole, because it's difficult to do that now with the hole in there. But I'm going to show you a different way that I recently did something else with. And that's to turn down a shaft that fits inside here and then slip this on and then use that to turn the actual wheel. So that what you wind up with is something that's completely, registered to this hole that's in the middle. The other thing I briefly want to go over is how I turn. I don't use normal turning tools, you could say. I use regular woodworking chisels like this one right here, this one right here, and this one right here. I probably only use these two for doing what I'm about to do, but later on I'll be using this one. I do this because this is the way I learned to turn. I started turning way back in the early 80s when I guess I was maybe 15, 16, probably even younger than that, with stuff just mounted right in the drill. I made a lathe from a drill. It's a pretty rough looking thing, but I was able to, turn quite a lot of stuff with that. Now, what I didn't have a lathe, obviously, but I also didn't have any turning tools, so I made do with these, and I learned to use these, and I have been using them ever since. Now, in the meantime, I have used regular turning tools, but I find that I like these better, actually, because I'm so used to using them. I've got a piece of spruce mounted in here between centers. I cut this to 3/4 of an inch square because I want to mill it down to 5/8 of an inch to fit right inside that hole that's in the wheel. First thing I'm going to use is my 1-inch chisel here and use it kind of like a roughing gouge. I'll hold it on an angle like this, maybe a 45 degrees to the work. And what that will do is it'll make a shearing cut very similar to the way a roughing gouge does. Okay, I've got that partially turned down. I'm going to be turning it down gradually after this and checking the diameter as I go. I don't want to make it too thin so that the wheel will be sloppy on there. I want it to be a fairly tight, snug fit as I slide it on. I've gotten questions before when people have seen me turning with regular chisels, how I sharpen them. There's not a whole lot to it. I just take my stone, which is in this case my homemade stone, and take the chisel and just backstroke it like this a few times, holding it up about 45 degrees. And all I'm looking for is a very slight burr on there, and then I know it's ready to go. Now, the best way I found to check the diameter as I'm cutting this down is with just an ordinary open-end wrench. The benefit of having or using the wrench is that you can do it when it's running, and there's not much of a chance that it'll catch. Pull that back out of the way. And then I'm going to slip my wheel on. Maybe a little fast to start with, a little bit slower. Same thing again, start with the 1-inch chisel, use it as a roughing gouge, taking very small passes. That's one way to do it, and it's probably the slower way, actually. The way that I used to do it is much faster than that, and that's to do it in steps, taking a small amount at a time and working my way across until it's completely flat. I've got it pretty well roughed out now. I'm going to turn it on, increase the speed, and go over it again, just a final smoothing to make sure all of the unevenness is gone. What I'm doing here now is I'm shaving down the sides of the wheel because it wasn't exactly true when it went on the shaft there. There's a bit of a wobble there that I need to get rid of. At this point, the wheel itself is flat and straight across, but it really wouldn't be much of a problem to add a crown if that's what you want. It's generally not needed for my belt grinder though, except for the idler wheel, which really should have a little bit of a crown on there. I'll tell you, MDF is dusty stuff. You really want to get some air filtration going, dust mask, whatever. I've had people comment when I've been doing this before with regular chisels that it's dangerous. Well, nothing is really dangerous unless you're doing it dangerously. That means that you can do this perfectly safely. I've never had, not that I can recall, a serious catch with using chisels like this. First of all, you're in as close as you possibly can to the work when you're using these, because they're short and they're thin also. So you really want to get as close to the work as you possibly can. Also, you really don't need a lot of leverage. That's kind of a myth for turning in general. You need leverage if you're doing big things, of course, a longer tool. I mean, if you're doing a big platter, you really don't want to be doing it with small tools like this, although I would give it a try. I don't see why not. But you don't need a lot of leverage. Like I say, get in close, take your time, chip away at it like I was showing there, the second way of doing it. You know, take it in steps all the way across, and you won't have any problem as long as you're respectful of what you're doing. Okay, I said I wasn't done here before I went off on a tangent about the chisels and doing it this way. This applies also to making pulleys for anything, actually. If you want to make a pulley, a set of pulleys for my belt grinder, it's certainly a lot cheaper than buying them. I think that a set of step pulleys, 3-step step pulleys, will be somewhere around maybe $100, $150, $200. Depends upon where you can find them. I really haven't found a cheap source. I bought a 2-inch pulley not too long ago at a local place, and it was $12 for a 2-inch aluminum pulley. So I'm feeling kind of ripped off in that regard. So this is a good way to make your pulley. You drill the hole first, you make the shaft so that it fits on here, and then you can mill out the pulley from the plywood. I wouldn't make it out of MDF, although I'm going to do a brief demonstration with that here. Just like I did when I was dressing the ends of the wheel, I'm using the sides of the chisel to do a little bit of cutting as well. So you can see how that works. I had a little bit of chatter where the wheel tried to stop on the shaft. And probably one of the better things to do is, once you have it on here, is put a couple of dabs of hot melt glue on the end, just to keep it from, not rigidly on there, but enough so that it doesn't slip too easily. On my Switchblade video, I had a lot of people comment on the point of view shots. I did that with this thing right here. This is quickly made up. I mainly did it to see how well it would work. I had a few different ideas, and I tried this one first, and luckily it worked out. The biggest problem was the shape of my head, how to get it nice and tight and snug fit on my head. So I made a cardboard template that fit around, and then I could cut out this plywood ring here that supports the whole thing, and added cardboard sweatband around here, you could say, and across the top so that it'll stay in the same spot every time I put it on. I like what I got from this. Interesting footage, a little bit more dynamic than just having the camera put on the tripod and, for a static shot. So I expect to see more use of this in the future, although I'll try not to overdo it. You can definitely do that, I think. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.